The first set of 53-man roster cuts have been made. Now players being signed back to the practice squad. Some surprises for the Browns roster. And of course, it is fantasy football week. Your drafts are coming. I got the help you need. And we're also going to take a look at some Browns opponents from the AFC West. A lot coming up right now on the Sick Podcast with Andy Mcnamara.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Andy Mcnamara, the sickest Cleveland Browns podcast.
Chubb runs, he's to the 10, 15, he's to the 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. There goes Chubb, he's to the 30, 20, 10, 5, touchdown, Shabba-lubba hub.
It's gonna be sick.
Hello, everybody. We are getting ever closer to football. Labor Day weekend is upon us. It's coming, and that means real NFL football. Welcome to the show. Fantasy football draft season, guys. Look, I got my fantasy champion shirt. You can get yours, as well as our professional fantasy football player shirts and Browns gear on my Twitter page at AndyMC81. On X, it's the pin tweet. Click on the link. Get some hot show merch. You're going to love it. But we also have to talk about the Browns' 53-man roster, who got signed back to the practice squad, some injury updates, and then some future bets and some fantasy talk as well as AFC West opponents for the Browns this year with my guy Hustler. He'll be coming on in just a few minutes' time. But let's take a look at this Browns' first 53, not the final 53, but the first 53. Let's begin with the offense here, Jimmy, if you can pop that up. There we go. Now, of course, what stood out to everybody yesterday when it came out was the 4 quarterbacks on the roster. And is this Andrew Berry playing a little game of chicken? You know, he knows QBs are going to get hurt. He knows teams are going to want some depth. So he wants to try to get some trade bait out of it. And it's not a risky move, but it's an interesting move because really, okay, if you trade Tyler Huntley, what are we going to get here? You're going to get a 7th round pick? Okay, we got a couple of those. Like, I'm not super concerned with that. The other interesting notes, look at the tight end and running back spots. 2. Jerome Ford, Pierre Strong, Jordan Akins, and David Njoku. So that's why this is the first 53. It's not the final. You're not going to be going in to week 1 with 2 running backs. You're just not. Okay, Nick Chubb's at least 4 weeks away. You're going to be adding back. And probably a move comes when it comes to the quarterbacks. O-line, I think they're keeping everybody. Whoever we see there, I think they're staying. Injury update news. Jack Conklin did have the day off of practice, but it seems like that's a regular veteran day off. I am so surprised he is the one that is going to be starting the season. Kevin Stefanski didn't say it, but Conklin said it at practice yesterday. He's going to start week 1 at left tackle. Jed Will's still not ready from that injury that seemed like nothing, that surgery that seemed basic. Conklin at left tackle. So he's Pro Bowl, all-pro right tackle, played his entire career at left tackle in college, and now is back to left tackle. So they're practicing him out. DeJuan Jones goes to right. So I'm feeling actually for the first time all summer pretty good about that left tackle position, because if Conklin goes down again, which has happened the last 2 years, you still have Jed Wills who's coming back. He's not on the pup list. He should be, I would guess, maybe a week 2 type of add-on. They just didn't like the lack of practice that he got in leading up to this. So I feel pretty good about the O-line. How do you feel about the O-line? How do you feel about this team, this roster on the offense so far? Click subscribe, notifications on. Follow us on Twitter, on X at AndyMC81, at SickPodBrowns, Instagram and TikTok at AndyMCSports. The quarterback situation has me a little concerned in this sense. I just hope Andrew Berry doesn't make the same mistake he did last year, which was you trade Josh Dobbs, you put Dorian Thompson-Robinson as the backup, and then he gets hurt and wasn't very good. Now, I believe in DTR. I think he has gotten better. I think he had a really good preseason. Again, a different look preseason, something he said he learned from Joe Flacco, where he learned to be more poised in the pocket. That's that Flacco influence. So I like that from DTR, but he's still slender. He's still slight. He's still injury prone. A big hit and he's out. So why would I want my primary backup for my injury prone $230 million QB to be a injury prone, smaller year 2 quarterback? That's why you got to keep Jameis Winston. As good or bad as he is going to be, he is a former first-round pick. He's played a lot of games. He can probably muddle his way through. Guys, I will cheer for Tyler Snoop Huntley as much as the next guy if he's in a Browns uniform. Okay, if you're in a Browns uniform, I cheer for you. This guy is not a good professional quarterback. He's just not. Okay, full stop. I don't care what he did against the 3, 4, 5, 5th string guys in Seattle. He is at best a practice squad decoy to prepare for a Lamar Jackson or another mobile quarterback. That's it. That's all Tyler Huntley is. Can he be a gadget guy? He can maybe bring in for a little thing? Sure. Should he be the other quarterback with rumors of Jameis Winston on the trade block? Insanity. Not interested. You got to keep it of Watson, then you keep Winston, then you keep DTR and go from there. They'll add another tight end back too. I bet you that Mitchell Payton gets brought back as well. Let's look at the defense real quick. Have Hustler coming up in a few minutes. The defense, pretty stacked, looking pretty good. Oh, I love seeing Myles Garrett at the top of that list. Reigning, defending Defensive Player of the Year. Linebackers looking good. What I liked was that what we saw was Jordan Hicks, not on a pup list or anything. Now, he hasn't practiced pretty much at all. And that's supposed to be the Anthony Walker replacement, captain, star guy who veteran leadership, knows the Schwartz defense. That has me a bit concerned, but Diabate, who was the sensation last year's there. Devin Bush, I'm bullish on. Nathaniel Watson, before the year is out, I think we're going to be talking about Nathaniel Watson. This guy's a player. This could be a really good under-the-radar pickup for Andrew Berry. Cornerbacks are loaded. Khalif Halasi. I loved him coming out of college. I actually had him on my championship. Got the ring there. Championship college fantasy football team. I had him picked up. This guy's long. He's lean. He was on the team last year, a little bit practice squad. And this is somebody who I think is going to be a contributor. Denzel Ward practiced today, still not cleared from concussion protocol, but has been cleared to practice. Good sign. I bet he plays, but you got to keep that cornerback room stocked because you can't count on Ward. Safeties I really like. Hickman was and Anthony Bell were absolute stars. Great pickups, undrafted guys by Barry. And special teams are the expected guys. You got Hopkins back, Bajorquez punting, Hewlett at long snapper. All right, let's take that down, Jimmy. There you go. Let me know about that Browns 53. Now, let's take a quick look at the Browns practice squad signed today, signed back. Browns signed 13. You can get up to 17, so they'll mix and match with this, right? Players will get signed, etc. But right now, players of notes. Okay. Jawan Briggs, who was the 7th-round pick. Jalen Darden, who's been a bit of a camp favorite. Wide receiver. Others don't. Justin Hardy. I'm so glad they brought back Justin Hardy. Cleveland native. That's the guy. If you remember from the video when the Browns beat the Jets to clinch the playoffs, he went in and said, hey, Cleveland's my town. Bring a ship to my city. Bring a championship to my city. That's Justin Hardy. Special teams ace and captain. Got burned in a preseason game. You don't have him to play defensive back. You have him to be a special teams ace. So I'm glad he's back. He'll be a contributor. Jermaine Ifedi, who was we're down to the 6th left tackle. He's back. James Prochet's back. That's nice too. Kick return guy. You can put a long snapper on there. Lorenzo Thompson, another one of the left tackles, and wide receiver Michael Woods. So very good there. Should note Michael Hall, if you didn't see, is on the commissioner's exemption list until his legal issues get sorted out. That is set. I believe he's supposed to appear in front of a judge in early September. So hopefully that gets sorted and, off we go. So that's the practice squad. What do you feel? How do you like this Browns roster as it stands going in? Leave comments, subscribe, notifications, X at AndyMC81 at SickPodBrowns. We'll get into some fantasy football, talking some betting stuff, as well as some AFC North preview. Let's bring in now my guy from Winnipeg Sports Talk. He is everywhere. He's the betting guru, my old friend. It's the Hustler, Andrew Paterson. Hustler, how are you, buddy?
Andy Mac, I am fired up. Here north of the border, this is the week as kids we used to overdose on anxiety because school was about to start the next week. It's very different now. It is very different. I have even taken my normal Chiefs hat off and put on a hat. I'm a fan of the league tonight going into another fantasy draft. Everyone has a place on my squad. He hate me. And of course, north of the border, we
Lovely.
got the big CFL Labor Day games
Yeah.
kind of take over, which are going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And then next week, we get to raise another banner at Arrowhead and get ready to go on with another season. So
get ready.
I'm in high spirits. I basically just have depth charts and ranking lists rotating through my head. And honestly, I can't wait to, listen, I'm not in a hurry to get to next Thursday because there's a lot of fun before then, but needless to say, we know how antsy we all get at the end of August when we start picking our players. We want to set some lineups. We want to make some bets. We want to hit some futures.
Yeah.
And then get going with another NFL season.
We want to see how it goes. And I love, the Rob Lowe themed. Go football. Go.
Fan of the league. Fan of the league.
Go league. Why not? Absolutely. I love it, man. You know what? Hey, a quick side note too. Your Chiefs, Travis Kelce, purchased as part of an ownership group a racehorse called Swift Delivery in honor, I guess, of his. Funny, the horse is a boy. It's a guy horse, but named Swift Delivery after Taylor Swift, of course. That horse is racing at Woodbine in Toronto this Saturday in the Toronto Cup. So there's a little football tie in there to your Chiefs.
Interesting. We do a lot of work with the track here in the Peg at Assiniboia Downs. Shout out to them. I've got my HPI bet account. You let me know what race.
Okay, I will.
That Swift Delivery is going in. And I promise you, just out of support for both Taylor and the Queen of Chiefs Kingdom, for Travis and the Queen of Chiefs Kingdom, I will support Swift Delivery. Apparently, it's a pretty good thoroughbred.
Well, just one. And the word is on the way up. Like it's a good, on paper, good purchase and is on a roll. So we'll see.
I'll say this about Travis. He's got a knack for winning, and he's got a knack for maybe not quite as much as his significant other. Everything he touches turns to gold, but he's got a pretty good track record so far. So I will definitely ride with Swift Delivery at Woodbine when it gets going.
Let's go. In conversation with Swifty, Andrew Paterson, the Hustler, Sports Talk. Okay, before we get into some fantasy and futures, I want to wrap up the Browns 2024 opponent series that we've done. And I've really liked doing this series, talking with people about the different Browns opponents, because it helps on the fantasy side for prep. You're talking about different teams and really kind of gets you in the mindset. So let's talk. I've talked Chargers before and Raiders. I want to talk Chiefs and Broncos. I think the Broncos is probably the shorter conversation here, Huss, because you got 40-year-old looking Bo Nix and they're cutting Sam P. Ryan and all that. This team looks like it's going to absolutely suck.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we need to. There's always that team or two or three where you're like, oh my God, they're going to be terrible. And then you realize that, okay, maybe we weren't fair. New England is going to be terrible. That much I think we can take to the bank. I'm not sure that Denver might be able to, sort of exceed some of their expectations for this year. Like, what's
the over-under on wins? 4? It's 5 and over.
No, that's the Patriots, who are Denver's is 5.5, and it's like juice to the over big time at -164. Yeah. Listen, as a Bronco hater, I would love to take some nice plus money on the under 5.5 wins. I'll have to go through their schedule.
Yeah,
I mean, listen, they are going to get 2 games against the Raiders. They are going to get, I believe they open against the Chargers. And again, Justin Herbert's still coming back from that plantar fasciitis. I've got major questions about Herbert this year. I mean, listen, you could be like the Vikings and have JJ McCarthy go out for the season in training camp. That is devastating. But knowing that your all-pro quarterback, your offense is dealing with a foot injury that keeps him out for an extended period of training camp, that has got to send shivers down your spine. But listen, as far as the Broncos go, as much as I can't stand Sean Payton, I will give him credit. He has been a guy that historically has been very, very good with quarterbacks. I mean, Drew Brees was a 2nd-round pick and went on to become
long time ago, though,
a borderline Hall of Famer under Sean Payton. And by all accounts, this was the guy he wanted. This was the guy that he thought that he could succeed with. And I'll give Bo Nix credit. He did look good in the preseason. He won the job, and I don't think it was even close against a guy like Jared Stidham.
And Zach Wilson.
Not huge. Well, Zach. Good old Zach Wilson. Yeah. Hey, he's still on the roster, I guess.
He's
So
there.
good for Zach. But listen, they just don't have the horses to compete with the likes of the Kansas City
No.
Chiefs. I mean, are they going to be better than they were last year? I mean, I think they're starting to go somewhere. But I mean, listen, I'm not going to be taking Bo Nix in even a keeper league. I mean, I don't think he's going to be a guy. Every now and then someone surprises us.
Sure.
I've tried to get away from unequivocal hot takes in the week before the season because it's so funny. You look at your bets for week 1, you get killed and go, oh my God, everything we thought we knew
It's gone.
is not the case. So especially with betting, I try as hard as it is to tread a little lightly in week 1 and maybe even week 2 until we've got a better idea about it. But let's face it. I mean, when we're talking about the Broncos, this is a rebuilding team. The expectations are limited for them. And a win for them would be a great season from Nix, who shows that he has what it takes to be an NFL starter and puts him in a position for them to take. I mean, listen, arguably their top receiver before is now a Cleveland Brown in Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton is a serviceable guy that'll end on a few fantasy teams. But other than that, I mean, I don't really see a lot of guys that are very interesting from a fantasy perspective.
Maybe Javonte Williams, like as an RB2, perhaps?
I mean, listen, if you're picking Javonte Williams, you probably left that position later in the draft.
You left it late. At least, like what I look at it is, okay, even if I don't necessarily love the running back, is he going to be the guy to get the most carries? And in fairness, Jaleel McLaughlin actually popped a couple times last year. But I think Williams is probably still that guy. What that looks like if they're down and trailing, I'm not going to go rush for Javonte Williams, but if it's between him and somebody who's on a team in a full-blown committee that I can't trust, at least I think, well, Javonte's probably going to get touches. You know? I don't love it.
Oh, for sure. Well, I mean, listen, we know how scarce it is. I mean, there's a very limited amount of bell cow backs, and I don't think he is that guy or will be that guy. But even running backs on bad teams, if you can tell me that this guy's going to touch it 20 times in a game, you know, depending on your situation with who else you have, you can consider starting him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, big picture, I mean, whether we're talking about fantasy football or otherwise, I'm not looking for massive offensive seasons from literally anybody in the Broncos offense. No. Maybe Bo Nix can turn it around and change all of that and make guys like me look dumb, but I mean,
I doubt it.
Yeah, I doubt it too. And listen, if they are all of a sudden competitive, they can get if they can go 9-8 this year, Sean Payton probably is in the mix for coach of the year, to be perfectly honest with you.
I agree.
So that's where we are with the Broncos heading into the season.
Yeah, I agree. It's fantasy football, slim pickings there. Let's get to your Chiefs. And I think this year for fantasy, there are some very interesting fantasy possibilities because typically I think we're conditioned, Huss, to think Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. That's it. And then when Tyreek Hill was there, it was him. When he was gone, it wasn't. And that's kind of the thing. Okay, you know, for the non-savvy fantasy player, that's it. I think there's a lot more value this year and opportunity. And I want to get your thoughts on two guys that I think can really add value. You can get them probably later in drafts and who can make an impact. Number one, that wide receiver room still with Rashee Rice. And is he distracted? Is there a suspension? Is there not? Whatever. Xavier Worthy, tiny guy, love the speed. My late round pick, Huss, I want me some Juju Smith-Schuster, and I want him a lot. This is a guy who had his best season since he was with Pittsburgh, with the Chiefs, went to New England and bombed because the Patriots suck. You have him back. There is opportunity here for Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, and listen, Juju's coming into a situation where it's not as barren as it was in previous years. I mean,
and no pressure on him. There's no pressure on him.
Well, I mean, no pressure on him, or maybe there is a lot of pressure on him to resuscitate his career and establish himself as a legitimate NHLer. I mean, he's coming in on what the veteran minimum because he got cut by the Patriots. I mean, it is a no risk ad for the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, they haven't invested anything in him. He's a guy that did do well at times with Mahomes before when they had him in here.
He's gonna be motivated.
A fraction of what he is. Oh, for sure. I mean, The one guy we didn't mention is Hollywood Brown. And Brown, speaking of show me seasons, he's injured at the start of the year. But that is a guy that has blazing speed, dynamic potential. And if there's one guy that can get the best out of a guy is 15, Patrick Mahomes.
I like him too, but that injury spooked me right now because we know at the start is it okay? Does it linger? Does it come back? It's
the one thing I'll say about him. If you're drafting tonight or tomorrow, Hollywood Brown is dropping like a stone because of the injury and the other guys in and around there. If you have the opportunity to get him real late, like as your fourth or fifth receiver, and sit him on your bench for the first few weeks, that could end up being an incredibly valuable pick later on in the season. We're going to see who sort of establishes himself early on and through the season as the go-to guys. Rice was that dude. If you look at how productive he was from week 12 on last year in his rookie season and in the playoffs as well, he was phenomenal. He'd be going much higher if he wasn't such an idiot with with what he did in the offseason with that obscene, dangerous driving. And he's got 8 felony counts against him right now. So listen, I'm sure he'll avoid jail time, but he's not going to avoid a suspension from the National Football League. Now, the question is, does that happen this season, or do they wait it out for the process to take place and then he serves it next year? I think the uncertainty around that might actually make him one of the best value guys, because when he's in the lineup, he's going to be WR1. He'll be the guy. Well, again, WR1, not including Travis Kelce, who is TE1 and WR1 all wound up into one. And then the only reason that I'm not as horny for Juju as you seem to be is the fact that they picked Worthy in the first round and how good he's looked in training camp as well. As you mentioned, this is not a massive dude. You're not going to mistake him for DK Metcalf. No. But at the same time, he's done really well battling with guys like McDuffie in training camp, winning ball battles against corners in tight spots. And then with his ability to burn, Andy Reid is going to scheme it up that he is going to be seeing the football.
Is he doing any kickoff stuff?
Well, listen, I don't believe that will be the case because I think they're planning on him being in that offense. But we've seen before with the Chiefs, there will be a time that if Worthy is not getting the touches on offense, and for instance, if Juju moves in and is all of a sudden playing the slot and is taking the majority of those reps, I think they do want to get the ball in his hands. So I certainly don't rule that out. But at this point, I don't think that he'll be doing kickoffs. He could be doing some punts, but again, punt returning. And I think he is kind of on the depth chart as the punt returner. But here's the thing. The days of Devin Hester are long gone. The punters are so good in the NFL. They're kicking it high. These guys are surrounded. It's basically fair catch city. So that would be a bonus if he gets any work on there. Mecole Hardman is who they have on the depth chart right now as the kick returner. And that might be a way for Mecole to keep the team. Pardon me?
Now you need 2 of them now with the new NFL rule. So Huss, I'm just thinking, you imagine Mecole Hardman and Xavier Worthy both back to return kick. Holy cow. That's outrageous. That's must-see TV.
Yeah.
That would be sensational.
Chiefs. Well, that's another reason why, when you're picking, if you are doing fantasy and you're picking, defense / special teams, kick returning has been an afterthought in many, in most leagues for a long time. All of a sudden, if that, and again, we'll see how this kind of goes into the season as to how much of it changes is. And if we do see a little bit more, explosive plays on the return game, they certainly have that. But, listen, when you're looking at the Chiefs, the funny thing about Kansas City is we focus so much on Mahomes for obvious reasons and what their offense has done. They won that Super Bowl last year in a very different way than their other 2 under Mahomes.
Yep.
That was done by the defense. I think about Chris Jones and the rest of the guys on that front line, Noddy in the middle, Korloftis coming off the edge is another top pick that they had. And then you get into the secondary, even without L'Jarius Sneed. McDuffie is now that dude in the secondary for the Chiefs. So, and listen, Drew Quantrill and Leo Chanel had, great seasons, to the point that Tranquil got extended when it was thought that he was just kind of a guy that was filling a hole for a short period of time last year. So the defense comes back pretty close to intact. There is going to be a big challenge for Williams or Johnson, Hicks, who's ever in that L'Jarius Sneed position, because part of the reason that Sneed, I think, has been so dominant is that when you have a guy like McDuffie on the other side, you can't just put a guy on Revis Island and focus on the other guys. That could happen to McDuffie this year. So maybe the one question mark is on that other corner, how they handle the loss of L'Jarius Sneed, who, I get it, a little upset that having to leave Kansas City to get his money. But when you're winning the way that they've done, everyone wants to and deserves to get paid, and you have to make some tough decisions. And that's why Sneed is now one of the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, you get your cash.
From an offensive standpoint, though, the receiver room, to your point, is just night and day as to what it was last year. And again, the Chiefs are benefiting from the fact that they have Patrick Mahomes. They won a Super Bowl with one of the least imposing wide receiver groups in the National Football League last year.
Most drops, too, wasn't there? Wasn't it like most drops?
God, the drops.
Yeah,
and that was just Kadarius Toney. He alone.
Thank God he's gone. What a waste. That guy's absolutely
Although,
garbage.
you know what the funny thing is, Andy? And I think back, I'm glad they've got better players, more reliable players. I think that'll make Mahomes happy. But to Pat's credit, the leader that he is, he never once said anything other than, we need to be better. There's a lot of other quarterbacks that would have, kind of pumped. The Detroit game early on, I make this joke all the time, but if you remember the Kansas City-Detroit game last year, where he had 3 or 4 drops, including one drop, which went right into the hands of a Detroit corner, which was returned for a touchdown. If Kadarius Toney simply played corner in that game, meaning that every time Mahomes threw him a ball, he just batted it down,
swat it,
they would have won the football game.
My God.
The difference was the drops over and over again. Now, there were some other guys at the start of the year. Rice was a little droppy.
He was.
That got corrected earlier on this year. But now, you add in Hollywood Brown, you add in Juju Smith-Schuster, as you mentioned. Justin Watson is still there and is still a pretty reliable guy, but he's a nice guy to have in your 4 wide receiver sets, or maybe a third guy that's spelling a guy. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, they'll be getting a big opportunity. The one guy that I will admit I was a little surprised survived to make it onto the 53 is Sky Moore. He's, it's funny, when he came in after Tyreek Hill left, and we thought, okay, this is going to be a guy, he's going to pick up where he left off.
A lot of speed.
Not even close. He really has had a minimal impact. He could be a guy that ends up doing some returning as well, to be perfectly honest with you.
He's a guy, Huss. Otherwise, it's like run the X like 3 times in a game. And maybe you catch an 80-yard bomb twice in a year. That's Sky Moore.
Yeah, he and Hardman's still on the roster, and he's going to be a guy that can come in if guys get injured, and Mahomes knows him quite well. But they're looking at Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy to be their guys. That is a ton of speed, way more talent than Mahomes has had in the past.
A lot of movement,
and then a line,
Kelsey too.
And then a line in that middle of the line too. With Tooney and Creed Humphrey, and Pacheco's going to get his.
I want to talk to you about Pacheco real quick here. Okay. I want to talk Pacheco because that's where I wanted to go fantasy wise. Pacheco's where he's being drafted. This guy's going to be a steal because people, again, don't think of the Chiefs as balanced. But I love how last year, Andy Reid, and to Mahomes' credit, egoless. Hey, this passing in with the receivers wasn't working. Let's adapt. Let's use this. And let's get more run focused. And they went finally with Pacheco. They gave him the ball. And look at the numbers. 205 carries when it was all said and done. On top of that, 44 receptions, 9 total touchdowns, and rushed for 935, ran for 244. That is gorgeous RB2 numbers you can set and forget. I love Pacheco this year.
Yeah, listen, and he's one of the few sort of bell cow guys that, and listen, is he, he's not in that tier fantasy-wise of McCaffrey and Robinson and Breece Hall and maybe even Taylor or Saquon Barkley, but I wouldn't be surprised if when it all is said and done, he's pretty damn close. Andy Reid loves to have a balanced offense. I mean, as much as it's great to have Mahomes, and Mahomes has won in so many different ways, not to get gushing about the man again, but listen, he's done it before with dynamic offenses. He's done it more for where he had to sort of manage it a little bit more and play field position and run the football more. And you're right, Pacheco's in his prime right now. Still, he will be a top 10 running back, I would say. I think I can safely say one concern I have, just from a fantasy perspective of Pacheco, has nothing to do with his play, but there's a new guy in town. The Chiefs have a fullback. And I'm not sure if you caught any of the Chiefs in the preseason, but this Carson Steele, who, honest to God, Browns fans will love this, maybe a bit of a smaller Peyton Hillis. And we got our own little white rhino junior in Kansas City right now. And I could see this guy getting put it this way. If they're going from the 1 yard line, I wouldn't be surprised if Steele gets in there. And I think that might be, it'll suck for Pacheco owners, but it'll be great for the Chiefs long-term because we know the wear and tear of those goal line carries. They've got to come in to do that. His college stats are just amazing. I can't remember where he started. He ended up transferring, through his career and finished up at UCLA playing with Chip Kelly and did, a whole bunch of things as running back, but I think they sort of have him as a quote unquote fullback. He could be a guy. I don't know if there's such thing exists anymore than a touchdown only league. Like started 25 years ago playing fantasy football, but touchdowns alone, I think Carson Steele probably gets anywhere from 4 to 6 this season. And that might take a little bit of the value off of Pacheco. But as far as just carries, yardage, opportunity, Pacheco is the guy. And it's not like they're looking to put Clyde Edwards-Helaire in for a few more touches. It's going to be Pacheco. And as I say, I think inside the 3 yard line, we might see Carson Steele a little bit more because that was always Pacheco's domain in the past.
Very interesting. Carson Steele, they picked up Sam Pirine as well for a depth guy also. Very interesting. Okay, Carson Steele, there you go, people. Jimmy, bring up the DraftKings read here. Let's talk a little more fantasy and get into some bet inside here because DraftKings, folks, hey, NFL season is here. You can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code 6sports. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. It's yours, Huss. The crown is yours. It's mine. It's all of us. 6sports, the code, $200. Get you bonus when you just bet $5. Absolutely love it. Get DraftKings for fantasy, for betting. Gives you all you need there. So let's talk a little futures bet, shall we?
For sure. Just quickly, you mentioned Pirine. I've been on the air all day. I heard that was something that was potentially it was possible. I thought the Broncos would do everything they could to not have him go out there. Pirine is legit. I'm surprised that the Broncos are moving on from him.
I was too.
And I made that joke about Edwards-Helaire. The joke might be on Edwards-Helaire now that Pirine is in the mix right now. He is far more a capable back to spell Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
Now, again, he just got there. Pacheco is their guy, but I do wonder if they don't mix Pirine in a little bit more than they had the confidence to do with some others. So that could erode a little bit of Pacheco's fantasy value. He's still top 12, top 15 for sure when it comes to NFL running backs, though, from a fantasy perspective. Sorry, back to the future.
No. If you can, like I said, if you can get Pacheco as like an RB2, right now it looks like he's in general about the 9th running back off the board, behind guys like Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon Barkley. So something to consider. But good points.
Great.
In that Carson Steele, very interesting. All right, futures, my friend. We got the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. They're the favorites, obviously. Where are you looking when it comes to futures? Do you like to go across the board? Do you like to go win totals, division winners? Where are you looking right now?
I mean, I'd like to say I discriminate, but I'm sort of all over the place with it. I mean, we'll always like to, I think the key is, you're not going to bet a win total on every team in the NFL. But when you're looking at the 32 teams, the books will have their picks and you'll see what the numbers are. And I think you sort of have to identify either numbers that you just think are off or particular options that are providing some good value. If you can get plus money on something that you think is on the other side, you jump at that. Mm-hmm. My favorite futures are league leaders, the award winners.
Right.
I'm looking, and this is just kind of funny with Mahomes. Mahomes on reputation and everything that he's done is always the favorite to lead the league in passing yards. I don't think he should be. If you look at the way some of these other teams play, the way the Chiefs often win and just are able to sit back in the second half, run the football, the fact that they have an elite running back in Isaiah Pacheco. The guys that often, win passing titles are the ones that are teams that are in shootouts. Sometimes guys on bad teams that end up getting a ton of garbage time are always in it. So, a guy like Jared Goff, who, by the way, I believe is playing 14 of 17 games or 13 in a dome this year with that receiving core, 8-1 for Jared Goff, I think, for passing yards is definitely live. When we look at rushing yards, this is honestly something you just have to figure out who is going to be the healthiest. Now,
yeah.
I would say this: if Christian McCaffrey played all 17 games and gets the touches that we're expecting him to get, for sure, he probably wins it behind that San Francisco line. Well, they don't have Trent Williams right now. He's nicked up going into the season. This is another thing, like Mahomes to be the favorite to lead the league in passing. Of course, McCaffrey's the favorite to lead the league in rushing. However, I think there's a lot of reasons why at sometimes 2, 3, 4 times the odds, some of the other guys in this conversation we should get to. Barkley's at 6-1. I'm seeing right now. Jonathan Taylor at plus 650. The Jonathan Taylor one is, I love Jonathan Taylor from a fantasy perspective this year. I know they got Anthony Richardson, and I know that he can run as well.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Shane Steichen needs to keep him upright and in games. He was reckless last year with some of the rushing. And the things you can get away with as a specimen like he was at Florida is way different than the NFL. I think there's way more of a focus to establish the run with Jonathan Taylor this year. And again, if he's healthy, he can be a horse right up there with the best in the National Football League. He is a guy that I'm into at 6.5-1. The other guy, though, and this is maybe my fantasy crush of the year, is Breece Hall.
Yep.
And I think, if you look at Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers' offenses in the past in Green Bay, it wasn't like Aaron Jones wasn't getting a ton of touches. It wasn't like they didn't try to run the football. They absolutely did. And Rodgers, to his credit, is maybe the most lethal play action quarterback in the league. I always wondered, how the hell does Devontae Adams keep getting open the way they have? Well, First of all, they had to respect the run. And I know that the New York Jets are going to be trying to do that. Breece Hall had the season he had last year playing behind some of the most incompetent quarterbacking in recent NFL history. 8 men in the box almost every time he got the football. I don't think they're going to be able to do that with Aaron Rodgers this year, assuming that he stays healthy. I think Breece Hall's receptions might come down a little bit because he had a lot of passing last year. Well, why was that? Because the Jets quarterbacks weren't confident throwing past the line of scrimmage and would just keep dumping it off. I think a lot of his receiving production moves to rushing this year, and I think he is very live at 8-1 to lead the league in rushing. And then
Bijan?
Pardon me?
Where's Bijan for Robinson for the rushing?
Bijan, I'm like, he's just behind them. He's in a group. I'm seeing 10-1s out there right now. Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Bijan Robinson.
I might put a little Bijan.
Of those three, I definitely take Bijan.
Yeah.
I do think that with Kirk Cousins there, I think they'll be throwing the football a lot too. I mean, this offense should be good, but I kind of want to see it first before I really invest in it. They do have a new coaching staff. The guy won't be as backwards as Smith last year. I think Robinson gets way more touches this year, which is obviously quite important. But of that group at 10-1 with Henry, Williams, and Robinson definitely take over that. Like Kyron Williams was great. I think Corum's going to get quite a few touches as well. I think they're going to try and keep him. I think they're going to try and keep him live and part of that, part of the offense. And who knows? We've seen Kyron Williams has one great year. This is not a guy that's established for 4 years. I'm not taking anything away from him, but I'm a lot less sure to say that he is going to be the RB1 for this team for 17 weeks than I would be for a Pacheco or a Hall or, some of these other guys that I've mentioned. And then there's Derrick Henry. And listen, Derrick Henry is one of the great running backs of all time in the National Football League. It seems like he's been around forever, and yet he's only like 30 years old or 29. Yeah. I didn't believe that. I know. Kind of reminds me of Frank Gore now, just because he's doing it so well for so long. But I do wonder about Lamar Jackson. And
you can't. He's not leading. With Lamar Jackson at quarter, he's not leading the league in rushing. No way.
No, I think, and I mean, they're definitely going to want to, continue to grow Lamar's pass game.
Yeah.
Listen, Henry's going to get his, and the other thing, they're going to want to make sure he's ready to go for the playoffs. Like John Harbaugh does not care if Derrick Henry is the league leader in rushing. What he cares about is that they have that battering ram ready to actually run the football when they need to. Because if you think back to when they got punted by the Chiefs last year, the Chiefs stopped that run, and they frankly didn't stay with it long enough. And the one kryptonite for Lamar Jackson is when he's not running, and you just sit back and say, we'll force you to beat us with the passing game.
And he can't.
And it hasn't worked out well. And listen, it's fun. It's great to say that in the regular season. It doesn't always work, but the top teams and the top defenses have been able to do that. That's why the Chiefs were able to beat Baltimore last year in Baltimore. And that's why they won the Super Bowl. So, one other name that is somewhat intriguing. Like, I'm a big Jahmyr Gibbs guy, but I wouldn't jump on him on that just because of the shared responsibilities in the backfield. I know Shane looked great for a few games last year in the Dolphins, and people are high on him.
Still too many people there.
Raheem Mostert's still there. And as much as we want to just say, Shane's the guy, they trust Mostert. He'll get a lot of those touches. Josh Jacobs in Green Bay. And Matt LaFleur, much like my situation I was just talking about in Green Bay with Breece Hall and Aaron Rodgers, they have always tried to establish the run and run the football. And Josh Jacobs going there without Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon's done. I mean, we are looking at a guy that could very well be a true bell cow running back playing on all three downs. And if you're seeing him in and around the 14 to 15-1 range, he's a guy that's sort of out of that top tier of running backs that I think is going to have the opportunity to get into that list. I don't mind him when we're talking about to lead the league in rushing yards. And then as far as receiving goes, you got Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb as your top two options, and that makes sense. Let me ask you this, just a quick question. If you're on the clock and all the receivers are available, McCaffrey just went, all the running backs went, the top three guys, and you're there, well, obviously I'm going to take the best receiver. Who are you taking? Hill, Lamb, Jamar Chase? We'll include even Justin Jefferson if you're not too spooked about Sam Darnold.
I'm definitely spooked about Sam Darnold, so I'm not taking Justin Jefferson. I'm doing CeeDee Lamb based on opportunity, Huss. Opportunity equals success. Look at the rest of that Dallas offense. By God, you got Zeke Elliott? What is this, 2020? What? Come on. The only option is CeeDee Lamb. You got Brandon Cooks who gets injured. You look at him too hard, and he'll just run flies. CeeDee Lamb. Whereas nothing against Tyreek Hill, you got a lot of other mouths. If he Waddle still, you can't overlook Waddle. No. Waddle's still really good. You have an offense that you have to distribute the ball. If you're Dallas and you're Dak Prescott, you got to give him the Devontae Adams treatment, like 14 targets a game, and hope you can figure it out. Because otherwise, I don't know who you're throwing it to. So for me, volume-wise, I'm going CeeDee Lamb.
My only worry about CeeDee Lamb is that because of the lack of threats in most other areas of the Cowboys offense, that he's seeing two guys on him pretty much every single game this season. But
he's so good. I think he's at Devontae Adams is like sort of the level where it might not matter. I think
do whatever you want. He's still going to get his.
I think like 95% of other receivers in the league, 100% agree with you. You take Adams, Lamb, Jefferson, if you had a quarterback, those are guys where it doesn't matter. You just get him the football. The problem with Jefferson is the guy he was throwing him is not going to be able to get him the damn ball. So that's the problem.
Well, you know what? I'm not as down on Darnold, to be honest with you. And I think more of it is maybe a credit to Kevin O'Connell. But I mean, KOC has done so well with far less talented quarterbacks than Sam Darnold. And I don't think it should be lost on everyone that the first day of free agency, the Vikings went right to Sam and signed him to a 1-year sort of prove it deal. I think they knew that they were going to be picking a quarterback and targeting JJ McCarthy, who they ended up getting. But I also think that in a lot of ways, they were playing this as, I think, a possibility that they could maybe have Sam come in and have a really good year, and they wouldn't have to rush JJ in, much like Mahomes did for the one season behind Alex Smith. Like, is he going to throw a few picks? For sure, but I think he's still going to sling it. And Justin Jefferson is that good. I think based like all receivers, all things being equal, I believe he's the best receiver in the National Football League.
Me too.
And let's face it, they're also going to probably lose quite a few games. They will be down. They'll be playing from behind. And it wouldn't shock me if Justin Jefferson doesn't miss a beat fantasy-wise, even though the team isn't as good as they would have been if they had maybe more elite level quarterbacking. And Jefferson,
garbage points count the same.
Oh, absolutely. Jefferson's 10-1 when we look at the receiving yards. I mean, Jamar Chase is plus 850. He's got his contract thing. AJ Brown's 10-1. I'm sort of out on the Eagles. Like, I think they're a pretty good team. I know they've got a lot of talent, but there's the mouse defeat. There's the emergence of Saquon Barkley. And I don't know. I mean, I love Jalen Hurts in and around the goal line with everything that he's done. He can be sort of on and off. And of course, they got Devonta Smith there as well.
I'll give you one guy, Huss. I think depth tight end. If you draft a guy and you're not too sure, get Dallas Goedert. My Philly guys are telling me Dallas Goedert is going to be a fantasy. You know, he's not going to be Sam Laporta or Travis Kelce, but a late pick, depth guy, bye week, jump in, who's going to be a surprise contributor. Dallas Goedert could be somebody.
You know what? And I think like having Barkley in the backfield, I think is going to really help Goddard, because I think they are going to need to play a little closer to the line of scrimmage, trying to not, because you know what, Barkley, like he gets a step or two on you and then all bets are off.
Yeah.
I think that allows a little bit more escapability from Goddard, some quick releases from Hurts. PPR, I think he gets a lot of time. I think he'll get a few more catches closer to the line of scrimmage, but he'll be moving the change, and I do think he'll be involved quite a bit. But just finishing up the the receiving leaders, where we're looking at the odds. As I say, I'm not counting out Justin Jefferson at 10-1 because of the situation. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, I think talent-wise, this guy might be a guy. And I said, we've talked about Jared Goff. They're in the dome all year long. There's a lot of things that sort of skew to it. The only thing that concerns me is just how good so many of these other position players are. In Laporta, you know they're going to try and get Jameson Williams involved a little bit more early on. But I kind of think the time is. The guy that I was on this last year, and I can't possibly bet this at 20 because I have no confidence whatsoever in their quarterback in Derek Carr, is Chris Olave. And I do think Olave is a player that, you can certainly start every week. There'll be a couple slow weeks. Otherwise, he's going to get his. But, I mean, the whole Carr thing, and I don't know if you know many Saints fans, but they are just kicking themselves. They want Spencer Rattler to get in there after looking half decent in the preseason.
Never. Look at it. You don't know what you got sometimes until it's gone. I don't know about, Derek Carr is like a nice, average, non-exciting Spencer Rattler. I actually don't. You know what? I actually think that might be a good fit there. He'll be very interesting to see if and when he gets his NFL shot, because remember, Huss, he was like, this guy's going to be the first overall pick. And then he was nothing. And then he quietly built himself back up.
Yeah.
So that's going to be
people forget about people real fast and just move on.
Yeah.
And sometimes the league does not work like that. So
they come back and there's no pressure on him.
New Orleans is an interesting one to me. Hey, just while we're talking futures, and I haven't really dived in too much to like the defensive rookie of the year. Some really interesting candidates for the offensive rookie of the year, which I think is a lot of fun. Caleb Williams obviously being the favorite. But the regular season MVP, and listen, I'm a Mahomes guy. Mahomes is plus 550. I mean, I think he's the MVP, but we got to think about who wins this award.
Right.
And it's usually a guy, Mahomes being the perfect example. Shout out to me. I'll Barry Horowitz myself for 40-1 MVP ticket on Mahomes after he had started one game. But he went into a situation with a great offense. If they were going to be good, he was going to have to be great. And he was, and it all clicked, and he won it in that first year. So I'm not on Mahomes. I'm not on Josh Allen. CJ Stroud's interesting, but I think he's sort of just getting credit in the odds for a great season they had last year. I think with the first place schedule, it might not be maybe as easy for him in the sophomore season. And listen, Joe Burrow's fine at 10-1.
If he's healthy.
It's Jordan Love, 14-1. I know I talked to you about Jared Goff potentially leading the league in passing. I think the Packers are primed to win this division. I love Green Bay at plus 190 to win the NFC North. This was the youngest team in the year, the youngest receiving group in the year.
Good young receivers.
Saw the way they came around in the second half of the season, what they did, embarrassing the Cowboys in Dallas in the playoffs. And I think they're really ready to take that next step. Think about Jordan Love's progression to this point. He's on the Aaron Rodgers plan. He sat there for 3 years learning from one of the greats in the game. When he got his opportunity, it took a little bit last year, but by the end of the season, he was slinging it with the best in the game. He's going to be the focal point of this offense. They've got a group. You look at the futures, you look at the numbers for the Packer receivers, none of them are that high. And then you've got a 3,900-yard total for him to go over. I think he goes for over 4,000 yards passing. I think the Packers win the NFC North. And if that is the case, they upset Detroit to win the North. They put themselves with a home playoff game at the end of the regular season when the voters are voting before we get to playoffs. I think there's a want for some new blood as well. I love Jordan Love to potentially be the MVP. I think that if they win the NFC North and are in the mix for one of the top 2 seeds, I think he's going to get a ton of the credit for it. And that's probably one of the areas I've really focused in. Loving Packers.
And he's what? 10-1?
I'm seeing 14-1 for Jordan Love.
Okay, I'm jumping on that. We'll get to one. I want to bring up one because we're tight on time here, Huss, but I want to bring up one fantasy football question from one of our followers. But first, hey, you want to jump on that bet Huss is going over and all the futures? Get to DraftKings, people. Get to DraftKings Sportsbook. Great for fantasy football as well. You can cover yourself all over the place when it comes to DraftKings. You use the code 6sports and you jump in on it. And also, much like my hat, Huss's hat, our shirts, you can look good, look even better with Homage. Get with our buddies at Homage. Specializes in ultra comfy, high quality look, repping sports, pop culture, and more legendary moments. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description. I've shown you the shirts week after week. They just look sensational. All right, Jimmy, bring up the tweet there, please. We got one, and we'll get to the other. I'll respond online on Twitter, on X, at AndyMC81, at SickPod Browns. Use hashtag AskAndy. This is from our buddy Grant in Canton, Ohio. Says, I'm picking third in a PPR draft with no IDP. He's an IDP guy, Huss. Yuck. I think my first pick will be one of these 3 wide receivers available. Actually, kind of interesting. Goes back to what we were talking about a little earlier. Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, or A.J. Brown. Do you agree? I just don't feel comfortable taking Jefferson top 3 with the QB situation in Minnesota. To me, out of those 3, I think A.J. Brown is going to be really good, but I got to take CeeDee Lamb based on what I was just saying with the volume. What about you?
I'm a Hill guy. I think I take Hill.
Okay.
I would go Tyreek Hill, then CD. And to me, there's a gap on AJ Brown, and I'm maybe a little bit lower on his prospects. I mean, he'll get this 1,000 yards, and he'll probably get 7 or 8 touchdowns. But if you're number 1 pick, you're picking that guy first off the board. You want to be the difference maker and separating you from the others. I think I go Hill, I go CD Lamb, and I think I would still go Justin Jefferson over AJ Brown. But we talked about it before. I'm not as spooked about Sam Darnold. I think a lot of the game scenarios and script will go that they're going to try. And listen, they're paying him so much money. If Sam Darnold can't get on the football, they'll let somebody else try to do it. But yeah, I'm not as freaked out about the situation in Minnesota. I will give you Hill and CeeDee Lamb, considering their situations above Jefferson, other than maybe Jamar Chase, if he's signed, healthy, and playing. Yeah, those are the only guys that I would pick over Jefferson when it comes to PPR fantasy football this year.
Interesting. So fantasy football talk, guys. Make sure you're getting your questions in. Use hashtag Ask Andy. Either comment section here, Twitter, X at AndyMC81, at SickPod Browns, Instagram at AndyMC Sports. Huss, you've been very generous with your time, my man. Tell people where they can find you. I know the show is Winnipeg Sports Talk, but this is all sports. This is about betting. This is the inside stuff you need when it comes to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, our daily show, Winnipeg Sports Talk, is live at 1 Central, so 2 Eastern every day. And if you just go on YouTube, search Winnipeg Sports Talk or wherever you get your favorite podcast, it's there. I mean, obviously, we do really focus on a local audience. So for you puckheads, we talk a lot of NHL, Winnipeg Jets. This is a big CFL market heading into the Labor Day game on the weekend. So we'll certainly hit the Blue Bombers, but NFL is king. So we'll have daily NFL content. And I do talk betting each and every day with my pal Dustin Nielsen on a show called The Lock Shop. And we get into a lot of fantasy and betting stuff there. And that is at noon Central, 1 Eastern on the Edmonton Sports Talk channel every day. So lots of content. But yeah, I'd love for you to pop by. I got a soft spot for Cleveland and the Browns. So I'm hoping they've got a big season. I've got no love for the Ravens, no love for the Bengals.
Screw the Steelers.
I respect the Steelers and what they've done before. I still can't believe Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. I'm sure you all believe and hope that this will be the year, but I'm not sure that there is a more deserving fan base of a great season and some legitimate hopes. Frankly, it's Cleveland and Buffalo. Unfortunately for you, Patrick Mahomes is still in Kansas City. So until someone beats the man, he still is the man. But listen, I like the Browns to be a playoff team. And with that defense, they can beat anybody on any given day. And they're no joke, not a fun team to play against. And can't wait to see what happens in Cleveland and the rest of the way going when we get going in what, about 7-8 days?
Boy, going to be incredible. Huss, thank you so much, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, Andy.
All right, there he goes, Andrew Paterson, the Hustler. You saw where you can find him there, and great sports betting talk every single day, and all sports talk there. And we mentioned our buddies at DraftKings. Okay, we had the appetizer last week. Now it's time to feast. College football is back, right? Hey, NFL's coming. College football is back now. Don't miss any of the action. Jump in at DraftKings Sportsbook. Full slate of games for week 1, including the big matchup in Atlanta between the preseason number 1 and number 16. This is going to be DraftKings' biggest college football season to date. Enjoy the ride now all the way through the expanded playoffs. Plus, all newbies getting into the college spirit. Here's something extra special. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly, just like that. $200, boom, it's yours. Score big with DraftKings all college football season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code 6sports, 6sports, all one word. That's code 6sports for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Well, you can call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-OPENY or text HOPENY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Valid in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming sources, see dkng.co/ftball. There you go. Professional broadcaster, people. That's how you do it. DraftKings is awesome, though. We're going to be doing every Sunday, too. We're going to be setting our DraftKings, our perfect lineup, our perfect fantasy lineup every Sunday. So there you go. We covered the AFC West opponents for the Browns. We covered fantasy football. We covered the betting futures. We covered the Browns roster 53, the practice squad. We got it all in. Thanks to Huss. Thanks to producer Jimmy. Make sure you get those fantasy football questions in. Hashtag Ask Andy at AndyMC81 on Twitter, X, AndyMC Sports on Instagram. Leave a comment, subscribe, notifications on. Until next time, go Browns!
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Andy McNamara on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.